Hey everyone, welcome back. In this Postman tutorial, we are going to learn about different types of variables in Postman. So previously, in previous video, I have covered about different variables and the scope, right? Now let's see what will be the type of variable in Postman. So basically, if we go back to see what all variables we have defined, we'll go to the environments, right? And then we have this globals, right? So if we go to globals, you will see that we have the option here, and wherever we have defined a variable, so test underscore URL is the variable name, the value, initial value and current value basically are the values that are there in the variable, that these values are held in this particular variable, and this variable reference we can use in our Postman scripts. Now what are different types of variables? So if you see this type column here, you'll see the drop down. If I click on that, I have default and secret. So basically any variable that you define in Postman will be of default type. Okay, when we say default type, it is basically it won't be hidden, it won't be a secret. So the values that you see here in the variable, the value will be visible to any user, or basically to whomsoever you are sharing the particular collection with, the Postman collection, right? And I'll show about the sharing about the collection in later videos. Now if we change the type of this variable to secret, right? So as the name suggests, secret will hide the details of the values of the variable, right? So you'll see now the initial value and the current value is hidden, and even though if you want to share this particular collection, if the type is secret, then the values, initial value and current value, whatever values are there, won't be shared with anyone with whom you are sharing this particular collection. Why do we have the secret variable type, right? The reason is for security reasons, right? So any keys, any password that you do not want to share with your team that are specific, the tokens that are specific to your login ID and user ID, you just want to keep it to yourself, right? If you want to share the collection, you want them to basically use their token ID, their password, etc. So you change this type to secret for any variable that hold sensitive data like password, your token IDs, etc. right? So if anything is sensitive, any variable that you are defining holds sensitive data, change it to the type as secret, right? So these are two types that are supported within Postman for the variable types, right? Now any of the variable that we have looked at, the scope and everything, can be defined as default or secret. Now if you go to default, let's go to default, you will see that change test type to default. You will be asked this particular, the pop-up will appear, and I'll say change type, and you will see that the initial value and current value is visible again. Now if you just hover over, there is a tooltip here, right? So you can see what exactly this means, right? So even though I'm not explaining, you can still go ahead within the tool itself. There are tooltips that you can basically go ahead and read and understand a lot of things. So you can basically see that use secret type to store keys, token, secret, password, etc. right? So that's what the type basically is all about. If it is default, it will be visible. If it is secret, it won't be visible. Now let's come back to the initial value and current value and what is the significance of it, right? So when we say current value, right? So current value, the value in the current value column is the value that will always be used when you are triggering a particular request. All right, say for example, if I simply change it to, let's say this value is sit.request.in. okay, now the initial value has been changed and the current value is request.in. okay, let's go back to the collection, one of the collection, and I will say get request. And then here, if we go to the test URL, right, and this is test underscore URL, you will still see that it is still referring to which value? The current value, right? So let me refresh it. If I just hover over, initial value is basically not reflected well here. So looks like, okay, so I haven't saved it, right? So you'll see that I have changed this value, but I haven't saved here, right? So this is very important. Many times you might miss these sort of things. So make sure that you save it, okay? As soon as you will save, the orange dot will disappear disappear. And now if I go back to the request, you'll see that if I hover over, the initial value has changed to sit.request.in and current value is request.in, right? Now with this change, okay, when I send this request, right, you'll see it still works. Why? Because always when you trigger a request in Postman, the current value, the value in the current column is referred. Okay, now why do we need to understand this current and initial? Very important, because this is very basic thing, but many people do not understand why do we have current and why do we have initial. So let me go back here. Okay, so we go back to the environment, go to the globals, and here this current value, right? So always when you are working on your collection, current value will be referred. Initial value is basically, say for example, you have the type as secret and you are storing your password. Okay, so the password that you are using will be stored in current value, right? So I'll say for example, here I have written my password. Okay, so let me just put some dummy values there. So say for example, this is my password. So whenever I'll trigger a request, this value will be picked up, right? And when I'm sharing this particular collection, right, so what I can say is here, put your password here. Okay, so I can put this particular text here, and when I'll go ahead and save it and export this particular collection and share with my teammates or anyone, then they will be able to see that in this place, or for this particular variable, I have to go ahead and put my password, right? So they can go ahead and put their password in the current value, because whenever you are exporting, right, so if you just hover over, current value is used while sending a request, and these values are never synced to Postman server. Okay, if left empty, the current value automatically uses initial value, right? So you can also leave this empty. If it is empty, whatever initial value will be there will be used. Okay, and initial value is shared with your team when you share the variable in collection, environment, or globals, right? So because initial value is shared and current value is not shared, right, so and it is not synced, so that is why in initial value, if there is sensitive information, make sure you remove that sensitive information, the password, etc., and put a text there that they have to put the password, because this is the value, initial value, that will be shared. If there is no value in the current value, initial value will be by default used, right? So they'll get to know, say for example, you have exported this particular collection, shared with them, and they have directly triggered the request. Then initial value, for example, this text is there and this will be basically used. Obviously they'll get the error of the password, and then they can go ahead and see what initial value is there. They can see the text, and then they can provide the value, whatever password they are using in the current value, right? And then use the collection as is. Okay, so this is the relevance of initial value and current value, and why do we have different types of variable in Postman. Okay, so that's all for this particular tutorial. I hope it was helpful on clarification about the types of variable in Postman, as well as initial value and current value relevance and usage. So that's all. Thank you very much for watching.